Hello, this is Brianna Olson and Brian Earl presenting on how to use surveys as an elicitation technique. A survey is a systematic examination of a population by means of a series of specific targeted questions. Surveys are one of the most widely used and popular elicitation techniques available. They are great at reaching large amounts of users and gathering a lot of info fairly quickly and easily. Usually, the data from a survey can be pretty straightforward to analyze if there aren't many open-ended questions. They are also relatively inexpensive to use, especially with all the technological advances we have available to us today. Although great at gathering data from many people quickly and easily, surveys are not as useful as collecting rich and meaningful data. They should definitely not be the only elicitation technique used, but using them in the early phases to determine where deeper understanding and information are required is ideal. Information collected from surveys is also very dependent on good design and analysis.
The perceptions we are identifying from surveys are the expectations of customers and shareholders concerning where improvements can be made on an existing product, process, or service, and requirements can be gathered on new ones. Surveys can also help determine the level of satisfaction of customers concerning a product, process, or service. Finally, surveys can help prioritize the order in which these changes will take place. To accomplish the purpose of the survey, the organization or individual conducting it must have a complete understanding of the entire survey process. The survey must be designed to help identify a problem and should be prepared knowing what kind of data will be collected and analyzed. The purposes of a survey can include proving a point, making improvements on an existing product, service, or process, or get ideas for new ones. It also helps to know what action to take depending on the results of the survey. There is much greater benefit in obtaining a representative as a sample than in obtaining an exceedingly large sample. You have the time, contacts, and resources to be more rigorous about a sampling scheme. Try to ensure that your responses possess a 95% confidence level. Determining an adequate sample size is best determined by someone professionally trained in survey techniques.
When creating a survey, the designer will want to choose a survey delivery mechanism. Four of these mechanisms are face-to-face interviews, telephone surveys, mail-back questionnaires, and web surveys. A face-to-face interview is a directed one-on-one conversation. These interviews tend to have high response rates and produce high-quality data. The interviewer is also able to pick up on both verbal and nonverbal cues. However, they are very time-consuming, hard to analyze, and population size is limited. There is also the risk of introducing interviewer bias and potentially dishonest answers. Telephone surveys are one-on-one interviews over the phone. A large number of these surveys can be done in a short amount of time. However, they require a skilled interviewer and a good representative sample can be hard to get. There is also always the risk that the respondent will simply hang up the phone and end the survey prematurely. A mailback questionnaire is a paper survey sent in the mail and returned. Although these types of surveys are fairly inexpensive and are more understandable by the participants, there's typically a low response rate and time, and the user cannot ask for clarification on questions. Surveys can also be done through the internet. This method of delivery is extremely fast and flexible and usually has a fairly high response rate while being one of the most inexpensive. Using the internet brings in a few problems, such as participants need to have some technical skills, and the surveys can sometimes be confused as spam. Good question design is critical to the success of a survey. Questions should be kept simple. Short surveys will produce more accurate and complete information. Questions should be presented in a logical and sequential order and should also be asked in a way that is neutral and non-leading as possible with only one question asked at a time. It is also important to pick an appropriate format or type of question and to use demographic questions only when necessary. There are four formats or types of questions that can be used in a survey. These are open-ended question, closed-ended, semi-closed-ended, and demographic questions. Open-ended questions are those that allow respondents to give their own answers in their own words, such as with a textbook response. These types of questions allow gathering of new ideas. These types of questions can be more time consuming to analyze, but provide a lot of in depth information and promote exploration of the subject matter. Closed ended questions give the respondents a pre selected set of answers to choose from. These are more quickly analyzed than open ended questions. Multiple choice, dichotomous, paired comparison, scaled responses, and ranked or ordinal questions are types of closed ended questions. Semi-closed ended questions are both open have both open and closed-ended features to them, such as multiple choice questions with an option for an other answer with a text box to fill in. Demographic questions are those that are designed to gather info about the user, such as their age, income, gender, etc. These types of questions are risky, however, and can lead to a decline in response rate if they make the respondents uncomfortable.
A survey should be tested with a small group that is representative of the sample population before it is administered. The two reasons for this is to ensure that the directions of the survey and the content of the questions aren't misunderstood. Secondly, it serves as a quality assurance for grammar, sentence structure, and clarity. Pilot testing will maximize the effectiveness of a survey. A date and time should be selected for the start of the survey. Monday morning is recommended to maximize the amount of time remaining in that week to complete the survey. Provide the survey information to each participant, which includes the title, start, and end date, a brief explanation, 1 to 2 paragraphs, and the delivery method, which could consist of a URL link to the survey, a phone number, or an address to contact the interviewer. Remember to thank them in advance for participating in the survey. Each question is a semi closed ended question in order to maximize the collection of new ideas. They are in order of general to more specific, so answering one question isn't as likely to influence the answer of another. The survey had a minimum of 7 questions in order to keep it short and avoid higher abandonment rates. This survey takes approximately 2 minutes to complete, which is well under the suggested maximum of 10 minutes. As you can see, the role playing genre scored the highest, followed closely by adventure and strategy. The highest preference for game platforms is the PC, dominating mobile and console platforms by 4 or more responses. Music and a single player mode were the game features that scored the highest, followed by sound effects and making the game free to play. 2D graphics clearly dominated the results of this question by 5 or more responses. Keyboard and the mouse were the favorites for game controls, followed closely by a game controller. Though each screen scored above 4 responses, the menu and the map screen came out on top, followed closely by the title and event story screen. Open world map and RPG elements scored the highest, followed closely by puzzles and problems to solve using code. We conclude that out of the 11 students that took our survey, the sample group as a whole had high preferences toward a free to play role playing game played with the keyboard and mouse on a PC. The game should definitely include 2D graphics, music, a single player mode, a menu screen, and an open world map. Thank you so much for watching our presentation.